Bread kept armies alive, but during World War II, firewood was often more dangerous than bullets. That single problem forced engineers and soldiers to rethink one of humanity's oldest technologies. And, the result was a bread oven that worked without firewood at all. The fuel problem that changed everything. By the early years of World War II, bread was still a daily ration for most armies. It was cheap, filling and familiar. But baking bread in wartime came with a brutal catch. Traditional ovens required firewood or coal. Both were heavy. Both created smoke. And smoke in a combat zone was a death sentence. The hidden genius of retained heat. The core idea behind the World War II fireless bread oven was simple but powerful. Instead of constantly feeding a fire, the oven was designed to store heat, trap it, and reuse it efficiently. Once heated, it could bake multiple batches of bread with little to no additional fuel. This wasn't magic, it was physics, applied with precision. These ovens were built with thick masonry or layered metal walls filled with insulating materials like sand, ash, or earth. The insulation slowed heat loss dramatically. A short, intense heat source, sometimes lasting less than an hour, was enough to charge the oven for an entire baking cycle. After that, the fire was extinguished, no flames, no smoke, just stored heat doing the work silently. Here's the interesting part. In many cases, the heat source wasn't firewood at all. Alternative fuels in a desperate world. Firewood wasn't the only thing in short supply. Coal was prioritized for factories and railways. So field units experimented with whatever could burn hot and fast, then disappear. Used motor oil was one option. Soaked rags or metal trays of oil could produce intense heat quickly, then be sealed off. Alcohol-based fuels were another. Even animal fat, when available, was used as a high-energy heat source. Why bread ovens mattered so much? This wasn't just about convenience. It was about morale, logistics, and survival. Fresh bread boosted morale in ways canned food never could. It reduced reliance on long supply lines, and it allowed units to operate independently for longer periods. More importantly, these ovens allowed baking close to the front lines without detection. That meant fewer supply convoys, fewer risks, and more control over food quality. Some designs were portable, others were semi-permanent, dug into hillsides or reinforced bunkers. Many were disguised as ordinary earth mounds or storage sheds. To the enemy, they looked like nothing. To the soldiers, they were everything. The science that made it possible. At the heart of these ovens was thermal mass. Materials like brick, clay and stone absorb heat slowly and release it even more slowly. Combined with insulation, they create a stable baking environment without constant fuel input. Temperatures were monitored using simple methods: flour sprinkled on the surface, water drops observed for evaporation speed. Experienced bakers could read an oven's readiness by touch alone. Once loaded, the oven door was sealed tightly. No airflow meant no combustion, just radiant heat baking bread evenly from all sides. This is the same principle behind ancient Roman ovens and traditional earth ovens. World War II engineers didn't invent it, they refined it under extreme pressure. That's a recurring theme in survival history. No waste, no noise, no trace. Another advantage of these ovens was efficiency. almost every calorie of heat was used. There was no chimney bleeding warmth into the sky, no roaring flames, no crackling wood. That mattered in winter, when fuel scarcity was brutal. And it mattered tactically, when silence was safety. Some units even used waste heat from other operations. Engine exhaust from generators was occasionally redirected through heat channels. In rare cases, steam systems were adapted to warm oven chambers. Nothing was wasted. Everything served a purpose. So, what can modern survivalists learn from all this? Well, this isn't just a historical curiosity, you know. The principles behind these ovens are actually deeply relevant today. In a grid-down scenario, fuel efficiency really becomes life-saving. A retained heat oven, for instance, allows you to cook with just minimal resources. It reduces your smoke signature, it minimizes your exposure, and it lets you batch cook, which saves both time and energy. You don't need World War II-era materials to replicate the concept either. Earth, clay, bricks, and even steel drums can be adapted to store heat effectively. The real key is insulation and sealing. Heat once. Cook many times. That's a survival mindset worth remembering. So, why did this knowledge almost disappear? Well, after the war, fuel abundance returned. Gas and electricity made fireless ovens unnecessary. Convenience, you might say, replaced efficiency. And honestly, knowledge that wasn't written down faded fast. Many of these ovens were dismantled. Others were buried or just repurposed. The techniques survived only in scattered manuals, engineering notes, and a few oral histories. But they worked, and in a world facing energy uncertainty, that matters again. History doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it rhymes. And the people who survive are the ones who remember old solutions when new systems fail. There's a quiet brilliance to wartime ingenuity. What makes this story powerful isn't just the technology, you know. It's the mindset behind it. Faced with danger, scarcity, and constant pressure, people didn't panic. They adapted. They observed basic physics and bent it to their needs. They solved problems with what they had, not what they wished for. That's the true legacy of survival. Not gadgets, not luxury, but understanding how the world works and using that knowledge wisely. And that's why this World War II bread oven matters. Not because it baked bread without firewood, but because it proved that survival favors the prepared mind. If you enjoyed uncovering this forgotten wartime innovation, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Legacy of Survival, and share it with someone who appreciates real-world ingenuity. These stories aren't just history, they're tools, and honestly, the more we remember them, the better prepared we become.